the big takeaways for me is there appears to be a coordinated strategy, effectively to stuff the ballot box with Biden votes, and at least some evidence of the destruction of Trump ballots. That's number one. Number two, when you go across the 6 battleground states, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, you can see that the number of votes that are being contested, the arguably illegal votes, dwarf the relatively thin Biden victory margins in 5 of the 6 states. So that's number two. This is something I think that's been missing from the discussion. This is death by 1,000 cuts, but more precisely, death by the 6 dimensions of election, crack a smoking gun. And to that point, number 4, the famous Tolstoy quote about happy families being all alike, but unhappy families are unhappy in their own way. We have a similar situation here where each of the 6 battleground states is different in its own way in terms of its election irregularities. Georgia has consent decree issues. Wisconsin has definitely confined voter issues. Michigan has the observer issues, and so on. And then the last thing, which is very troublesome to me, is that there seems to be a tremendous effort on the part of many of what should be our pillar institutions in this country to basically self-censor anybody who challenges the results of the election. And it effectively mounts to a cover-up. And obviously we've got issues with the anti-Trump media, which has hammered him for 4 years and predicted a landslide win for Biden. It never came. We've got corporate America. We've got, surprisingly, some of the Republican establishment, and then finally we have state legislatures and the courts themselves. And then the other 2 things I'll say before working through this whole thing is that you can't, as a reporter at this point, responsibly say there's no evidence. There's a ton of evidence. There's a mound of it. And you can't say that just because the courts have ruled against Trump in a number of cases that there's no evidence of fraud. And then most of these cases have been decided on procedure and process rather than the evidence itself. All right, with that as the big picture, let me explain what I did and why I did it. I think you start at midnight on election night when the Trump red tide effectively showed an insurmountable lead, what seemed to be insurmountable leads in Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Georgia was over 350,000 votes, Pennsylvania over 500,000, Michigan almost 300,000, and Wisconsin over 100,000. And what you saw beginning kind of in the dead of night, these votes counts that started to come in that over time turned the Trump red tide into Biden blue. And what's striking about what happened is the narrowness, the razor thin margins by which Biden appears to have won those 4 battleground states. It's also true, and I don't know if this is out in the public record, that even though the president was behind in both Arizona and Nevada, by small margins. There was great confidence within the Trump campaign itself, based on internal polling, that the president would close both of those gaps, at least Arizona. And it looked like at midnight that this was going to be a landslide victory in the Electoral College, contrary to everything we had been subjected to for months before the election in terms of the pollsters.